Jimmy Butler situation, because somebody else had mentioned it. I want to kind of get this out of the way. This is a conversation. I still think Jimmy Butler on a good Western Conference team could be a problem. I think I mentioned to you guys that one of the trade scenarios out there was Jimmy Butler going to Memphis. I think Marcus Smart was part of that deal. There were a couple of different guys they had in there. I think there was some draft compensation that was there as well. I'm not really sure what to take of Jimmy Butler anymore. I said this in the beginning. I think Jimmy Butler's probably best shot and his best chance of this entire scenario and wanting to get traded was just kind of come to work and be a professional. Well, that clearly is not the case. The article that came out, I think it was yesterday. It's funny. Right when I saw the article, Jimmy Butler suspended again after walking out, I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, Jimmy, you're not helping yourself here. So they were getting ready to the Heat were planning to replace him in the starting lineup with another one of their players, Haywood Highsmith. And they were getting ready to basically bring him in off the bench. And then he said, cool, then I'm just going to go ahead and walk out a shoot around and not show up to practice and then call it a day. So Miami puts out their statement. So Butler has now missed 9 of Miami's 12 previous games. If I got the finances right here, Jimmy Butler's facing losing $532,737 per game under the latest suspension. I mean, isn't this hurting Jimmy Butler way more than it's hurting Miami? Isn't this just making Jimmy Butler look like somebody, whether he's right or wrong, isn't it going to hesitate? Aren't there going to be other teams out there that hesitate to trade for him and say, I don't know if I want to trade for Jimmy Butler under these circumstances. I don't know if, especially because you're going to need to figure out, is Jimmy Butler looking for an extension next year? Clearly he is, which is why he's not happy in Miami. Does he give up his contract, his player option next year? There's a lot of scenarios that are going to play out for other teams trying to trade for Jimmy Butler. But here's the problem with Jimmy Butler. The problem with Butler is Miami is known as a well-run organization with a top-notch front office and arguably the best coach in the NBA. Jimmy Butler it's not like he plays for Charlotte or he plays for this franchise. You're like, oh, hey, this franchise has no idea where they're going. It's Miami. It's Pat Riley. It's Eric Spoelstra. So not only is Jimmy Butler look awful in the situation, whether you agree with the situation or not, he looks unprofessional. He's losing 500 Gs plus a game. I think there will be some hesitation from some teams out there to say, let's trade for Jimmy. Maybe not. Listen, maybe some teams say, we're going to roll the dice. Jimmy Butler is a good enough player to bring on this team, and we're going to take our chances. That's probably going to end up happening anyways, just because of the circumstance and the predicament. But it's not look good for Jimmy Butler. I don't think there's, a scenario out there for Jimmy Butler right now that anybody's kind of painting this the right way for Jimmy Butler. Not a good look for anyone in Miami. Butler's trade value is going down too. Butler needs to get out of his feelings because it's hurting more than helping him. I think that's my point. I think my point is that I'm not trying to agree or disagree with why Jimmy Butler wants to get traded. I'm not trying to make a case that he doesn't deserve an extension. I'm not trying to make any of that case. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, who is this going to affect more? I think it's going to affect Jimmy Butler more. Some people in here are talking about that it makes Miami look bad as well. And listen, they're going to have don't get me wrong, they're going to have a little bit of not a black eye, but a lot of people are going to look at Miami a little bit differently because this doesn't usually happen in Miami. And to have something this public, and this is the third time that they're suspending him, just a bad look for all parties. But I do think at the end of the day, it's going to look worse for Jimmy Butler than anybody else. At least that's my, initial reaction to it. All right, let's keep going here. Lakers should take a risk on Jimmy Butler. I would listen to your conversation if you told me that a month ago. The problem is they traded D'Angelo Russell. So if you were going to go out and trade for one of those types of players, You can't do it anymore. Who looks worse in this situation is Miami's been a franchise that's always been top notch. It's Pat Riley, it's Eric Spoelstra. They just got their I's dotted and their T's crossed. Jimmy Butler, I think, is definitely a valuable player around the league and around the NBA. And wherever he ends up, if he gets traded in the next week and a half, I'm assuming he's going to get traded. Who's this hurting more? Is it hurting Jimmy Butler more? Is it hurting Miami more? Just your thoughts on how this is all played out.
I think we'll get the real answer after he gets traded. Like, you know what I mean? But right now, looking at it from afar, I think Jimmy looks worse than the Lake. I mean, than the Heat. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, getting out of Minnesota, you know, okay, you want to leave Minnesota. You know, the things didn't really work out here for him in the Sixers, and we get all that. And you go to Miami, but it's kind of like, you know, we all know, we hear about this Heat culture. We hear about how strict Pat Riley is, how, you know, he and Shaq didn't get along, and next thing you know, Shaq got traded and this and that. And I feel like it's kind of like you keep poking the bear. You keep poking the bear. And again, I haven't spoken to Jimmy or any of his people, you know, like recently, but what it looks like is, would you be feeling this way if you didn't get if you got an extension? You know what I mean? If Pat Riley said, okay, Jimmy, we want to give you an extension and you're going to be here for a little bit longer. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that he will be acting this way. And yes, when Jimmy does what Jimmy wants to do a lot of times, but when we hear that, okay, they told him he wasn't starting, and next thing you know, he walks out of the shoot around. Well, you know, I'm sitting here honestly thinking like, how I'm gonna pay for my daughter's college education, right? Whereas he's making $50 million a year, and he's upset because he's not going to start. But everyone knows that he's an all-star. So yes, that's going to upset you. But I feel like the reason why he looks worse is because, you know, people in LA got real problems, man. People worrying about houses catching on fire, people worrying about inflation going up. And here's a guy that's making a lot of money, you know, with commercials, basketball, all that type of stuff, is coffee. And he gets suspended a third time because they tell him he's not starting. You know what I mean? So, and it's kind of like, let's face it, it's the Heat culture. They're known for being strict. They're known for having not bending in what they want you to do. I mean, think about it. How many players didn't want to go there because they check your weight? They make you have to weigh a certain weight. You have to take a test. You have to do all types of stuff. And Jimmy was the man down there. But to me, the reason why he looks bad is because if they would have given him an extension, the money that he wanted, I don't know if he would be acting this way.
All right, if you enjoyed this clip and you want more, just subscribe to the channel. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the Sliwa Show. And then after every Lakers game, post-game show right here.